Think Canada's housing market is a bulletproof? Think again. Behind the maple leaves and polite facades, 10 cities are racing toward a devastating price collapse in 2025. Mortgage stress, foreign buyer taxes, and inventory floods are creating the perfect storm that could wipe out decades of equity overnight. You might think your home in Hamilton or Halifax is safe from the chaos hitting other markets. But right now, warning signs are flashing red across the country. Home inventory has exploded by over 60% in multiple cities, while mortgage payments consume nearly 70% of household income in Atlantic Canada. Foreign investment has plummeted 40% following provincial tax changes, leaving thousands of properties stranded on the market. Is your city about to become ground zero for Canada's housing correction? Could that dream home turn into a financial nightmare? From coast to coast, we're seeing the same dangerous patterns that preceded major crashes in other countries. Overbuilding, speculation retreat, and economic shifts are converging into something Canada hasn't experienced in decades. This isn't just a minor adjustment. It's a complete market reset that could reshape the entire Canadian real estate landscape. Let's start with number 10, where Steel City dreams are turning into mortgage nightmares. Hamilton, Ontario was supposed to be the golden ticket for priced-out Toronto buyers. But in 2025, this Steel City is learning that what goes up fast can come down even faster. Home prices here have jumped an eye-watering 85% since 2020, with the average house now sitting at $750,000. That's a massive leap for a city where the median household income hovers around $68,000 annually. Here's where it gets interesting. Hamilton's boom was built on one key assumption. Toronto workers would keep flooding in, desperate for affordable housing within commuting distance. For years, that worked like magic. But remote work policies have flipped the script entirely. Why pay Hamilton prices when you can live anywhere? The Toronto spillover demand that drove Hamilton's surge is simply evaporating. Meanwhile, the city's industrial backbone is cracking. Steel industry layoffs have hit over 12,000 workers in the past 18 months, according to recent union reports. These aren't minimum wage jobs either. We're talking about skilled positions that supported families and drove local spending. When ArcelorMittal and Stelco start cutting shifts, the ripple effects hit everything from restaurants to retail stores. The numbers don't lie. Housing inventory has exploded 67% year over year, with homes now sitting an average of 45 days on the market. Properties that would have sparked bidding wars in 2023 are now getting price cuts and still struggling to move. Real estate agents are throwing in incentives just to generate interest. Hamilton's correction is just beginning, but it's nothing compared to what's brewing in Canada's tech capital, where startup dreams are colliding with economic reality. Kitchener-Waterloo was supposed to be Canada's Silicon Valley North, where tech dreams turned into million-dollar homes and startup fortunes. But the reality check has arrived with brutal force. The median home price peaked at $820,000 in late 2023, and now properties are showing 3 to 5% monthly declines. That's not a correction anymore. That's a free fall. The tech sector meltdown here has been swift and merciless. Job losses have exceeded 8,000 positions in just 18 months, according to local economic development reports. Major employers like BlackBerry, Google, and numerous startups have implemented hiring freezes or outright layoffs. When your economy revolves around high-paying tech jobs and those jobs disappear, the housing market doesn't just cool down, it crashes. Here's what makes it worse. The area went on a condo building spree, targeting both tech workers and university students. New developments flooded the market just as demand collapsed. The student rental market is now oversaturated with luxury units that cash-strapped students simply can't afford. Developers who counted on steady international student demand are watching occupancy rates plummet. Foreign investment, once a reliable source of demand, has dropped 40% following Ontario's speculation tax and federal policy changes. Properties that attracted overseas buyers are now sitting empty, adding to an already bloated inventory. Local buyers can't fill the gap when their own job security is questionable. The University of Waterloo's co-op programs used to guarantee a pipeline of tech talent staying local. Now graduates are heading to Toronto or Vancouver, if they can find work at all. The region that branded itself as an innovation hub is discovering that economic diversity matters more than specialization, especially when that specialty faces a downturn. Halifax became the poster child for Atlantic Canada's housing boom, but economic diversity couldn't save it from basic math. Home prices have doubled since 2019, creating the worst affordability crisis in the region's history. The average home now costs over $500,000 in a city where the median household income sits at just $76,000 annually. The migration wave that fueled Halifax's surge is losing steam fast. Population growth has slowed from 4.2% to 1.8% annually, according to Statistics Canada data. Those interprovincial migrants who drove demand were fleeing expensive markets in Toronto and Vancouver. But rising interest rates have made Halifax unaffordable too. Why move to Nova Scotia if you still can't buy a house? Here's the crushing reality for local buyers. The average mortgage payment now consumes 65% of median household income. That's well beyond what financial experts consider sustainable, and it's pricing out an entire generation of Atlantic Canadians. Young professionals are leaving for Alberta or staying in smaller communities where housing remains reasonable. The supply side tells an equally troubling story. New construction completions have jumped 89%, while sales have dropped 23%, creating a growing inventory glut. Developers who started projects during the boom are now completing them into a much weaker market. Condo towers in downtown Halifax are struggling to find buyers willing to pay premium prices. The maritime advantage of lower living costs has evaporated. When housing eats up 2/3 of your income, those cheaper groceries and lower taxes don't matter much. Halifax discovered that no city is immune to housing fundamentals, no matter how charming the waterfront or how strong the local culture. But affordability isn't the only demographic challenge facing Canadian cities right now. Saskatoon faces the kind of demographic crisis that keeps city planners awake at night. This prairie city built its housing market on resources sector wealth, but when commodities tumble and young people flee, the foundation crumbles fast. Potash and oil sector employment has dropped 15% since 2023, taking thousands of high-paying jobs with it. The brain drain is accelerating at an alarming pace. University of Saskatchewan graduates are heading straight to Toronto and Vancouver after graduation, leaving behind an aging population that can't sustain housing demand. When your brightest minds consistently choose expensive coastal cities over affordable prairie life, you know something fundamental has shifted in Canada's economic landscape. Home inventory tells the brutal story. Listings have increased 78%, with properties now sitting an average of 67 days on the market, according to local real estate board data. Houses that moved quickly during the resource boom are now struggling to attract serious buyers. The city's median home price has held relatively steady around $320,000. But that stability masks deeper problems. Municipal finances are adding pressure too. Property tax increases of 18% over 2 years are straining household budgets just as employment uncertainty rises. City council faced tough choices between raising taxes or cutting services, and they chose higher taxes. That's pushing more residents to consider relocating to provinces with stronger job markets. Saskatchewan's resource wealth created boom and bust cycles for decades, but this downturn feels different. The global shift toward renewable energy threatens long-term demand for potash and oil, while interprovincial competition for talent intensifies. Saskatoon is discovering that resource dependency works both ways, and right now the cycle is pointing down. Of course, resource volatility isn't the only trap Canadian cities can fall into. Kelowna's wine country charm masked a dangerous dependence on speculation and vacation money that's now evaporating. This Okanagan Valley gem became a playground for wealthy buyers seeking lakefront retreats. But the party's over. Vacation property sales have plummeted 34% as discretionary spending tightens across Canada, leaving luxury developments with stunning lake views and no buyers. The wildfire reality is crushing the market from another angle entirely. Insurance premiums in high-risk zones have skyrocketed 120%, making some properties virtually uninsurable. Properties that once seemed like safe havens now come with annual insurance bills exceeding $15,000. When your weekend getaway costs more to insure than many people's mortgages, the math stops working. Airbnb hosts are feeling the squeeze too. Revenue has dropped 28% as tourism patterns shift and travelers seek more affordable destinations. Properties bought specifically for short-term rentals are flooding the market as owners realize they can't cover their costs. The average home price of $950,000 simply doesn't align with local income level, where the median household brings in just $68,000 annually. Local workers can't compete with vacation buyers, but those vacation buyers are disappearing. Teachers, nurses, and service workers who keep the city running are being priced out entirely, creating a workforce crisis that threatens the tourism industry itself. When your baristas and ski instructors can't afford to live where they work, the entire economic model falls apart. Kelowna built its boom on lifestyle appeal and natural beauty, but climate risks and affordability gaps are proving that even paradise has its price. Sometimes the most beautiful locations face the harshest market corrections when reality sets in. London, Ontario learned the hard way that betting everything on student housing can backfire spectacularly. This university city went on a building spree, adding 2,400 new student housing units in 2024 and 2025 alone. But here's the problem. International student enrollment has dropped 22% due to federal caps, leaving brand new buildings sitting half empty. The rental market saturation is unprecedented. Developers who counted on steady international student demand are watching occupancy rates crater. These aren't just basic dorm rooms either. High-end student apartments with granite countertops and rooftop lounges are offering months of free rent just to fill units. When your target market shrinks by a fifth overnight, even luxury amenities can't save you. Speculative investors are fleeing en masse. Properties bought specifically for student rentals are flooding the market as yields collapse. According to local real estate data, investor-owned properties now represent nearly 30% of active listings. These aren't distressed sales either. They're strategic exits by investors who see the writing on the wall. Home prices remain stubbornly high, still 65% above 2020 levels despite the economic headwinds. That disconnect between prices and fundamentals can't last forever. When Western universities' enrollment policies change and federal immigration rules tighten, who's left to buy at these inflated prices? The city that branded itself as Canada's education capital is discovering that putting all your economic eggs in one basket creates massive vulnerability. Local families can't afford homes priced for international investors, and those investors are heading for the exits. London's correction is just beginning, and it's going to be painful for everyone who assumed student demand would last forever. St. John's represents the flip side of Canada's housing crisis. What happens when people simply leave? This Atlantic city has lost population faster than anywhere else in Canada, declining 3.2% over the past 5 years, according to Statistics Canada. When your core demographic is heading for the exit, housing markets don't just cool down, they collapse. The offshore oil boom that once made Newfoundland feel wealthy is over. Oil sector employment has dropped 25% since the 2020 peak, eliminating thousands of high-paying jobs that supported entire neighborhoods. Young professionals who might have stayed for six-figure oil jobs are now heading to Alberta, Ontario, or anywhere with better prospects. The housing numbers tell a devastating story. Home sales volume has dropped 41%, while inventory has climbed 89%, creating a buyer's market that still can't find buyers. The average home price fell 8% in 2024, and that decline is accelerating into 2025. Properties that sold for $400,000 are now struggling to attract offers at $350,000. It's not just about economics anymore. Schools are closing, businesses are shuttering, and entire communities are aging out. When Memorial University graduates consistently leave the province after graduation, who's left to buy the houses? Empty nesters are downsizing or moving to retirement communities, flooding the market with family homes that young families can't afford to buy, even at discounted prices. St. John's proves that housing markets need people more than they need low prices. A cheap house means nothing if there's no job to pay for it and no community to live in. The city that once rode high on oil wealth is now grappling with the reality that resource booms don't last forever, and when they end, everything else follows. Victoria built its reputation as Canada's premier retirement destination, but in 2025, even paradise has its limits. Luxury home sales have crashed 52% as wealthy buyers seek alternatives to British Columbia's punitive tax environment. The speculation tax that was supposed to cool the market has instead triggered an exodus of non-resident owners who are dumping properties at steep discounts. The provincial speculation tax is generating unintended consequences across the luxury market. Properties worth over $2 million are sitting for months as offshore buyers redirect their investments to Alberta or Ontario. Local real estate agents report that many high-end listings are from panicked sellers trying to avoid another year of speculation tax penalties. When your policy drives away the buyers who can actually afford your most expensive homes, market dynamics shift fast. Retirees, Victoria's bread-and-butter demographic, are tightening their wallets amid inflation pressures. Fixed incomes don't stretch as far when groceries, utilities, and property taxes keep climbing. Many longtime residents are downsizing or moving to cheaper communities on Vancouver Island, adding to inventory pressures in specific market segments. The condo market tells an equally troubling story. 1,800 new units are hitting the market in 2024 and 2025, just as demand weakens. Developers who started projects during the boom are now completing them into a much softer market. Pre-construction buyers are walking away from deposits rather than closing on overpriced units. Victoria's gentle climate and scenic beauty can't overcome basic economics. When your target buyers are priced out by taxes, scared away by policies, or squeezed by inflation, even the most desirable locations face corrections. The city that marketed itself as a peaceful retirement haven is learning that political decisions have real market consequences. Calgary's corporate exodus is reshaping the entire housing landscape in ways most people don't realize. Major energy companies are relocating headquarters to Toronto, taking thousands of high-income executives and professionals with them. These weren't just any buyers. They were the ones purchasing million-dollar homes in Mount Royal and Elbow Park. When your highest-earning demographic disappears, luxury markets collapse first. The supply-demand imbalance is staggering. New home construction completions have surged 67%, while sales have dropped 31%, according to Calgary Real Estate Board data. Builders who started projects during the last oil boom are now completing them into a market that simply can't absorb the inventory. Entire subdivisions in the outer suburbs are competing for a shrinking pool of qualified buyers. Energy sector employment volatility is creating a psychology of uncertainty that's paralyzing the market. Even workers who still have jobs are hesitant to make major purchases when layoffs hit the headlines monthly. Oil prices might be stable today, but everyone remembers 2014 and 2015 when the bottom fell out. That institutional memory is keeping potential buyers on the sidelines. The average home price has dropped 6% year over year, and that decline is accelerating. Properties in energy-heavy neighborhoods like the Southwest are seeing steeper drops as workers relocate or downsize. Real estate agents report that many sellers are accepting offers well below asking price just to avoid carrying costs through another uncertain winter. Calgary built its housing market on energy wealth and corporate presence, but both pillars are crumbling simultaneously. The city that once symbolized Western Canadian prosperity is now a cautionary tale about economic diversification and market timing. Winnipeg takes the crown as Canada's most vulnerable housing market, where multiple crises have created the perfect storm for collapse. Home inventory has reached a 15-year high, while sales have hit a 12-year low, creating a buyer's market that still can't find buyers. The numbers are unprecedented. Thousands of homes sitting empty while prices prepare for the steepest drop in the country. Net interprovincial migration has been negative for 3 consecutive years, according to Statistics Canada data. Young professionals are fleeing to Toronto, Vancouver, or Calgary, leaving behind an aging population that can't sustain housing demand. When University of Manitoba graduates consistently choose warmer provinces for their careers, you know the fundamentals are broken. Manitoba's population growth has stagnated at just 0.2% annually, the slowest in Canada. Major employers are voting with their feet too. Companies are relocating operations to provinces with milder climates and larger talent pools. The recent announcements of corporate moves to Ontario and British Columbia have eliminated thousands of middle management positions that traditionally supported Winnipeg's housing market. These weren't minimum wage jobs. They were the career positions that allowed families to buy homes in Tuxedo and River Heights. Climate reality is harsh. Minus 30-degree winters aren't just uncomfortable anymore. They're economic liabilities that drive away talent and investment. Home prices are expected to drop 12 to 18% through 2025, making Winnipeg the worst-performing housing market in Canada. Properties that seemed reasonably priced are about to become genuinely cheap, but cheap doesn't matter when there's nobody left to buy them. Winnipeg's housing crisis isn't just about market correction. It's about fundamental viability in a country where people have choices about where to live and work.